All right, greetings from the dark continent. Conscious Karoo here, or Adams van Sail, here to shine a light on the goings on down south. A lot to talk about here tonight. It's been a while since I've done an episode. I think 2 weeks, probably more. I've been away on holiday as much as my leave allows. Me and my girlfriend, now betrothed, both our leave allows, and yeah, we went on holiday we went through on a tour from the beginning of April to the ending of to the 10th of April. We went to on a tour through the Northern Cape, just the two of us, or the Karoo Desert, a little bit into the Kalahari Desert as well. That's why my topic here tonight is the desert and a lot of the notes and observations that I made during that time and also in the time leading up to it. I see a lot of people are already tuning in. Goeienaand almal. Good evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Nice to see all of you. Andre, or in Afrikaans, it would be Andre or Andrej. Andre, I don't think is correct. I do apologize if I incorrectly pronounce your name. Nice to see you in the chat as well. Kingfish. Good evening, everyone. I don't think I'm going to have time to greet every one of you individually, but I will give you a little slot there on the screen so you can get into the digital archive of Stream of Consciousness watchers. Thank you very much, Gert Jansen van Rensburg, who said greetings and congrats on the promise of future commitment. Well, thank you very much. Hello, Artie Panda. Nice to see you. Yeah, it will be an interesting topic, I hope. For the audience, it was an interesting topic for me to prep, and I hope you find it insightful. So maybe just some context first before we dive into the topic itself. So our tour, we planned out. I've always wanted to do a Karoo tour, Karoo Desert, and so we went down, stayed 2 nights in Urania. Great experience. I've been there so many times I've lost count, but every time is an absolute blessing, and I love it to spend some time there and see how much the town has grown in just a few months in between my visits. So I've got my first visit of 2023 down for Urania. It was had a great time there, chatted to all the oaks there that I know, which is a lot of people already by now, and took a drive around town. We camped on the banks of the Orange River, and it was a great experience. Then we drove down to Calvinia, and just outside of Calvinia, you turn left, and then you drive 70 or 80 kilometers just into the Karoo Desert, and you lose signal very quickly. And then it's just you and nature and some farms around you here and there, but very isolated. And there we went to camp at a place called Aymansdam. It was an amazing experience. We'll get into a little bit more of the details of it. But yeah, that's where I proposed to my girlfriend. So let me just put that picture that I tweeted out for those that haven't seen it, because that'll give you a nice idea of the environment as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. I always take a little bit of time to get the screen sharing going. I hope you all can see. There we go. Is there a better way? No. It's pretty much that's the best I can do for now with the technology or my technological prowess. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right. So there's the picture. Let me see. Maybe I can. Is that better? Yeah, that's a bit better. All right. So yeah, thank you for all the well wishes. I see a lot of you in the chat that did wish me well on Twitter too. So yeah, that's the environment that was around us. I mean, we were pretty much isolated there. You didn't see any human man-made structure all around you, and it was so quiet that you could hear your heart thumping in your ears. It was a great experience. Then after that, we went to, let me see here, we went to stay another 3 nights at Rimvasmark Hot Springs, also there but that's in Northern Cape, but it's in the Kalahari Desert. And let me just get the picture there of our campsite. Let's see, I got the picture here. I think it's this one. No, it's this one. There we go. Again, that's the best size I can do for now. I'll figure out Full screen layout. What will that do? I don't want to test that now. So yeah, that's what the environment looked like. Look at that Bronze Age view there, that Bronze Age cliff right there that we camped under. Amazing experience, all great stars, and also very quiet most nights. The first night we were there, it wasn't very quiet, and I'll get into why. Actually fits the topic very well here tonight. All right, so that's the introduction. That's a little bit of context. Yeah, it was a very fun trip overall, and yeah, life changing. All right, I see. Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate it. All right, let me just check something here before we continue. So, with that context out of the way, the topic that I wanted to discuss here tonight specifically relates to the desert, but more in a metaphorical sense. But the physical, real desert that I visited now really embodies this metaphor perfectly. Yeah, thank you very much, Andrej. Andrej is actually tuning in from Slovakia. He's always in the chat, and he's done some great work. He's updated me on many of the things that he's done. I'd like to have you on the show in the future, Andrej, when I find a slot for you. Talk about what you do over there in Slovakia. All right, if you are up for it, let's get into this. So, being a desert Afrikaner, as I say, I mean, my ancestors, or my not too far off ancestors, my family on my father's side come all the way there from Beaufort West in the Karoo. So they are desert Afrikaners. They're a different breed of people. And I think it's just as the spider knows how to spin a web without anyone teaching it, and just as the birds that eat different types of berries know which ones are poisonous or not without anyone teaching them. I think humans also have a memory like that, for ancestral memory. That's probably what makes me so in love with the Karoo Desert. It's hard to see the beauty, but once you can see it, it's amazing. On that bird note, just a quick little bit of interesting natural trivia that I found fascinating when I heard it the first time. So I can't remember which cuckoo it is, but the cuckoo bird, you know, the one that lays its egg in other birds' nests like a parasite. It's so in here in the Highveld, it lays its egg in other insect-eating birds' nests, and those insect-eating birds will feed it all types of grasshoppers, but there are certain toxic, poisonous grasshoppers that only the cuckoo can eat, but those other birds can't because they're too toxic. For some reason, the cuckoo bird can eat them, but it's never fed them because it's a parasitic bird. Its egg is laid in another bird's nest, so its entire life it's only fed the non-toxic grasshoppers. But then when it's an adult and it flies away out of the nest, it goes out and it can eat the toxic ones as well. And the toxic ones look very different from the non-toxic ones, but it didn't have any cuckoo parents to teach it that it can eat those. It just knows. It just inherently knows, like the spider inherently knows how to spin a web without anyone teaching it. Some fascinating stuff. I just wanted to add that little detail. Maybe there's a little bit of an element there of people with desert Afrikaners, Woestijn Afrikaners with ancestry coming from the desert, being able to see that beauty in it. All right. So let's start off with the title. So the title is The Desert of the Real versus the Real Desert. And I've given you the context of the real desert that I visited. So, you know, the Desert of the Real might sound very familiar to a lot of you. It's a famous line from the Matrix movies when Morpheus says, "Welcome to the desert of the real," and it's the reality. And a lot of people actually attribute it almost as if it's a quote from the Matrix, an original quote. But Morpheus is actually quoting. I've only read his surname, so I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's a French surname, so Baudrillard. He first wrote about the desert of the real. He coined the idea, and in his right, or according to him, the desert of the real comes about when hyper reality doesn't refer to the real solid world, but to the virtual world. So the hyper real is the virtual, while the real world decays. The physical world just falls apart. So we get further and further engrossed in an online hyper reality or virtual hyper reality. And while that happens, the physical reality wilts and undergoes a desertification due to our neglect and society's deteriorating skill in the art of living. Now, as and a good example to demonstrate this would be as we, for example, get more infatuated with people with gardening simulator games or games where you take care of virtual pets, virtual plants. Those things in the real world, the plants in your garden or the pets that you do have get or could have had get neglected, or those relationships or that dynamic is never established, where you never have a real pet, you just have a virtual one, or you don't have a beautiful garden or even a garden to speak of because it's wilting the physical while you are engrossed in the virtual. So that's the desert of the real in that sense. Another example would be the real relationships that you have, the physical real relationships out there that suffer because of parasocial relationships that a lot of people get infatuated or engrossed with, or even fake virtual relationships like AI girlfriends or whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm talking about. And then a lot of real relationships out there that those people have wither and die, and a lot of them never even come into reality or never into fruition because they're just infatuated with the virtual. In regards to the metaphor of the desert of the real, I have a bit of a different take on it, my own idea of the desert of the real, the way that I use the desert metaphor here. And that is how, in my sense, it's more of how modern life is a man-made desert, a lot of the experiences that we have. So modern life as a man-made desert, it means that it can't, the modernity that we experience on a daily basis constitutes a desertification of human experience. So that's my take on the desert of the real, or the desert element in our reality that we experience today. So our modern reality is filled with booming music, loud booming music, unparalleled levels of bread and circuses, high fatty sugar foods. I mean, the type of stuff that our ancestors dreamed about, when even just a little bit of honey would have been an amazing treat, or a little bit of sugar or a little bit of salt would have been an amazing treat. Now today you can just for cheap buy that stuff in bulk and fatten up on it. So your unparalleled levels of bread and circuses and stimulation of every sense on a level our forefathers probably only associated with fantasy worlds and fantasies beyond this one. But all of that taken into account, the modern world it's empty, it's dry and soulless. The way people who do not appreciate the desert experience or view it. So what I'm talking about here is, I think the majority of people, if they see pictures of the desert or if they spend some time in a desert area, in my experience, they don't appreciate it. They see it as a dead, dry, empty place, devoid of life, devoid of anything beautiful. And that's actually what modern life is to many people. Ironically, it's not the desert. The real desert that I'm going to explain or get into now, is actually filled with life. It's brimming with life. It's an amazing place. It's a beautiful place. It's not empty, dry, and soulless, as many people that are trapped in modernity view it. That's the weird paradox, the weird contrast, is that the people living in the empty, fake world, there's a correlation between those people and the same people that view the real desert as an empty, soulless, ugly place that they would never be caught dead in or visit because it would just be boring and ugly. Those same people are trapped in the modern world, the modern experience, which is an actual desert. It is empty, dry, and soulless. And I've said this a while back. What actually showed me this view of the desert from many people in modern times specifically, is the way people, and it's going to be a little bit of a tangent, but you'll see how I get back. is actually how people talk about solar panels. So solar panels, there was this tweet the other day or a while back from someone that said, Elon, we need to build these mega solar farms. It's the only way to save the planet, whatever. And he showed unironically this video or drone footage of just this mountainside completely covered in solar panels. The most ugly thing you can imagine. It looked horrible. It looked like something out of a dystopian world, but it wasn't being presented as undesirable. It was being presented as desirable. And his reasoning was, when people took him on about it and said, this is horrible, we do not want this, he said, oh, but it's deserted land. There's nothing there. And that really caught me. That really stuck with me. The fact that he just brushed it off as, oh, it's just deserted land. What he means is it's deserted in the sense that it's not what nature is presented as today. So today, through documentary films and through nature photography and all these types of accounts on social media that just share beautiful nature photographs, it creates this weird sense that so I believe the abundance of nature documentaries and this nature photography replacing actually going out in nature has warped and twisted an entire generation's idea of what an ecosystem is. To them, if it's not a lush rainforest or a colorful reef, it might as well be the surface of Mars to these people. That's why they can look at that video of the solar panels covering that piece of desert and they say, oh, it's just deserted land. There's nothing there. This is environmentalism. But if you visit the desert, as I have done many times and now recently did, you'll see it's everything but dead, everything but deserted. It's filled with amazing stuff. It's filled with grasshoppers that look like rocks. I mean, I've photographed many of them. It's the most amazing thing. They sit still and they look exactly like a little stone, and in all different types of stones, and they blend perfectly. It's also filled with beautiful birds that sing beautiful songs. Every one of those birds has a unique song. We view these little birds as we were driving that were flying from bush to bush. They didn't just walk around willy-nilly. They were quickly flying from bush to bush because there were hawks circling about, another life form in the desert. And they were taking refuge in these little bushes, and it was interesting to see. But again, another example of life in a deserted place. Another example would be small antelope that you find all across South Africa in the deserts. Little small duikers or small types of bookies. Jackals, another usual suspect within the desert. They make the most iconic, one of the most iconic sounds associated with the bush here in South Africa or the desert. The jackals calling at night. Another inhabitant of the deserted land. Beautiful butterflies, a lot of them very tiny and petite, but with beautiful colors. Amazing moths, toads, even there where there's no water, we found toads. One toad came into our campsite, jumped into our campsite. Also, the plants and trees aren't big, huge, and have massive flowers. They're small and they're humble. They almost blend into the environment. They look like stones. They look like the environment. So you find these small little succulent plants, all perfectly adapted and made for the environment. Most of them have thorns because in the desert, water is and food is scarce. So you better be armored up if you want to survive as a little plant. And so you either blend, you either taste horrible, or you have spikes. A lot of them opted for spikes. And so my point is that the desert is a place brimming with life. It's a beautiful place. It has beauty. But most people today just view it as a empty, soulless, dry, ugly place. While the irony is the urban hellscapes where they live are soulless, ugly, dry, and empty. But yeah, that's the introduction to the desert of the real. Firstly, how it's used in another context, and then how I how I use the metaphor personally. And that's maybe just to end off before I go to the real desert, is that the artificial reality, my point is that the artificial reality that's increasingly artificial that we live in today pretends to be full but is empty. The real desert looks empty, but it is brimming with life and beauty. So now we get to the real desert, but I first want to read some of your comments before I continue. Let's see. Sideliner Opinion says, hello all, good to have you back from the desert, CC. Thank you very much. Sideliner, good to see you here. Nick Miller says, hallo Ernst, dankie vir 'n goeie video. Wel, dankie. Video is nog aan die gang, so ek hoop jy geniet die res. Yes says, good evening everyone. Good evening, Yes. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. No, well, there's a lot. I'm just going to put the... Vulpes says, the Afrikaner in die woestijn. I was just talking about the jackals that we have here in the desert, which matches your name and profile picture. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Thorns also gather water. Makes sense. Nick Miller says, I once saw a video about relationship between the Sahara Desert and the Amazon rainforest. Do not mess with creation. Full stop. All right. And Yes says, happy Easter, everyone. Sideline Opinion says, desert is a place where only the tough and the adaptable survive. No handouts there. No, it's tough reality. But in the toughness, in that hard environment, you also find beautiful, gentle, soft, and almost fragile, I want to say, stuff. All right. Let's get to the real desert now, which is my favorite part. So in the real desert, water is scarce. It's not something that you see every day. You find it in all types of... you'll immediately make the connection between those of you that know the desert and know nature, between the examples that I'm going to mention now and how beautiful and how valuable they are in dry, arid places and in deserts. So that would be your little natural springs that you find, absolutely worth its weight in gold. Secondly, rain, that when it comes, sometimes it pours down hard, it causes floods. In the desert, also, rain can come from nowhere. We had some desert rain while we were there in Urania. We were hit with some beautiful rain and thunder there in Urania. It was great. And and then the other one is with dewdrops. It's another way, condensation of water. It's another way that, and then oases, of course, but they are kind of springs, as I mentioned earlier. So whereas metaphorically, so in the desert, real water is scarce. In the metaphorical desert that I'm talking about, or in the metaphorical desert of modern life, water is abundant. So in the real desert, it's scarce. In modern life, water representing all the abundances of life. I mean, you just look at the amount of people that eat in a day as much as their ancestors ate in a month, in regards to calories, raw calories, and greasy food, and high calorie food, the stuff that your ancestors couldn't even imagine in their wildest dreams. It was beyond them. So in the desert, in the real desert, simple things like rain are a blessing. Little springs are a blessing. That dew in the morning is a blessing. As we learn now, the dew that condenses on the thorns is a blessing. Rain in the city, to many city slickers and people in the city, is an inconvenience. It's something that you put a raincoat on, you put a umbrella, open your umbrella, and then you scoff at it and you're angry about it. So, I mean, now I've got to work in the rain, I'm getting wet and whatever. It's something that many in the city find as and I want to highlight that contrast. So in the desert, in the real desert, water is celebrated. Every little piece of or drop of water is appreciated and valued. While in the city, it's just abundance of water sometimes, and it's seen almost as an irritation. And I think you can draw the correlation there also between the metaphor of living in abundance but having an empty life, and living in scarcity but living a full life. That's the type of connection that I want to make here. So in essence, scarcity cultivates appreciation and gratitude. Many people that don't have scarcity in their lives, they can eat as much as they want, they can live in the biggest house that they want, they can have everything, have empty lives. They are experiencing a drought of meaning. They are thirsty for meaning. While those that often live in a real desert, or those that live in scarcity, often live full lives. Those that, even though they have maybe even have the opportunity to live more wealthily or abundantly, choose to live simply. They often, in my experience, from what I've seen, and you can find this theme all across the great literature of our civilization and many other civilizations, the same idea. I mean, the Bible is no stranger to this idea either, that it is those that live in abundance that often experience the most emptiness and meaninglessness in their lives. So yeah, like I said, the central idea there is that scarcity cultivates appreciation and gratitude. Beauty is also much harder to find in the desert, so it's much more special. In the city, you can find a bouquet of some of the most beautiful and exotic flowers you've ever seen around every street corner. It's going to cost you, but it's beautiful. It's in your face. It's massive. You can't really buy a bigger bouquet because it gets impractical. You can't carry it anymore. In the desert, you walk around, you can walk for hours and you might find one little flower blooming in a small little crevice or somewhere in a shady spot or under a tree or on a tough cactus. And that's going to be a beautiful flower because it's contrasted to everything around it. And I think it just came to me the quote from C.A. Langenhoven, which is actually quite apt for this conversation here tonight. That is, so in Afrikaans, I'll translate it for you. So the rough translation would be: the value of the shade of the tree in the desert is the heat of the sun around it. And that's the point, is that shade gets its value from the heat of the desert around it. That little shower of rain in the desert, if you were to move it to a city like New York or Cape Town, it would not nearly have the same amount of value, but it's the same thing. And that's important. Let me just put a note here, because a lot of the times these streams, I turn them into opinion pieces or essays later. Yeah. Here, long enough, and a lot of quotes about this idea. Great stuff. All right. So modern life is overflowing with the hyperreal things of quote unquote great beauty, but they're soulless imitations. They're mere caricatures. So you can, in modern life, city life, you can buy a massive bouquet of flowers, like I said, or you can find let me think, what would be another example? Oh yeah, you can, let's take it to another type of excess. It's the equivalent of a hunter-gatherer finding a drop of honey in the desert, working very hard to through his whatever traditional methods he uses to get the bees to calm down so he can get a little bit of honey. Maybe he gets stung a lot, but for that little bit of sweetness, that little bit of sugar that he can't find anywhere else, to him that's a great treasure. Probably only once a year, if they are lucky enough, our great ancient ancestors would be able to get the blessing, the gem, the treasure of honey. While modern man today, us, are able to cheaply afford to eat bags of sugar a day. I mean, you can buy a 2-kilogram bag of sugar at the shop for not a lot of money, and you can just eat all of that for dinner if you wanted to. But that hunter-gatherer, that ancient hunter-gatherer that has the little drop of honey, a little handful of honeycomb, or the modern man with his bag of sugar, who is in possession of the real treasure of life? I would say the former. The latter eats that entire bag of sugar and probably throws up because his body can't even take that amount of sugar. Probably feels horrible afterwards. While the man that eats the handful of honey that he was able to gather at great cost and great effort sleeps very well and deeply that night. Another example would be silence. So when we climbed out of the vehicle there in the Karoo, there near Dam, first thing we noticed is how dead quiet it is. I mean, I climb out of the car and I hear the beating of my blood, the thumping of my blood, of my heart in my ear. I hear it. Do, 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 do. Very, very strange. Catches you off guard. You don't know how to react. For a split second, you feel a little spike of anxiety, even because it's strange. Your body is like, this is not how it is. And then you get hit by a little spike of shame, because then you realize I've become so accustomed to all the noise of the world out there that when I return to the natural state, when I return to nature and I experience nature as my forefathers did, it catches me off guard. It frightens me almost. It gives me a, not frightened like scared, it like jolts you, gives you a little spike of anxiety almost, like something's wrong. But it was a valuable insight. But after like 30 seconds or a minute, you get used to the silence, but you hear absolutely nothing, like nothing. Like I said, you hear only the beating of your heart. That's how quiet it is. And that's another thing. Now contrast that but also in that environment where you hear absolutely nothing, you can hear a little bird tweeting all the way on the horizon. You hear a little stone as a field mouse or a veld mouse runs over a little ridge and knocks over a little stone and it rolls down. You hear it. A bird comes and sits in the tree above you. It doesn't even make a sound. Just the sound of it landing on the branch, you hear like, that's amazing stuff. But you don't hear that when you're surrounded just by sound. Before we continue, well, let me just see that I finished the thought now on sound. Yes. All right. So before I continue, let's just check in on the chat again. Let's see what you guys have been saying. Fulpe says, also, did you like that song I linked to you on Twitter? I haven't gotten to it yet. You linked it to me while I didn't have signal. It's in my watch list, so I have to get to it. But thank you very much for sharing. I will let you know as soon as I did listen to it. Sideline Opinion says, my grandfather was a Karoo farmer, and he always told us shade is expensive in the desert. It took me a while to understand that. Very nice. Mr. B says, popped in from Chris. Well, thank you very much. Okay, I see. The Colonel has sent his army. Goeienaand almal. Good evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. En dankie Chris dat jy hierdie mense gestuur het. I really appreciate it. Yeah, well, there you go. Sideline Opinions also says the desert dweller will harvest honey without destroying the hive. Yes. There's a lot now. Colonel Wyatt says, I always know how to respond to woke clowns. They usually cower and slink away. Now there's a lot of people coming in. Thank you very much. Vulpes says, music and silence are of God. Noise, that is of the devil. Sideline Opinion says, the bright starlit night is another treasure. Yes, we experienced that with light pollution. That's another one. I didn't think about that. Stars and light pollution. That's again, you have a ample amount of light in the city, but that makes you lose contact with the stars. There in the desert or in nature, away from the city, away from modern life, you see stars like you've never seen them before. You know those shots of the stars that you see on National Geographic or from professional photographers, and you're like, wow, that probably takes a lens like this. No, you can see that with the naked eye if you just go far enough away from all the light pollution from the city. You see stars like those photographs, like those. You see the Milky Way, you see shooting stars, you see everything. And we did see that. It was beautiful stuff. Gert Jansen van der Rensburg also says, the night seeing the majesty of the stars, which is hidden by smog in the city, and also the light pollution, but air pollution as well. You're right. Hendo says, do smash the like button if you have not. Well, thank you very much, Hendo. I really appreciate it. Yes says, thank you for all your coverage, Sergeant Wyatt. Colonel Wyatt, he corrected himself. Thank you. Yes, that's also a good good piece of commentary there, seeing as Chris Wyatt does great stuff over on his channel. Valerie says also get chased here by Chris Wyatt. And there's a little salute. All right. So let's continue. So now on that topic of noisy neighbors. Oh yeah, no, I didn't. That's a little bit of a spoiler now. So on that topic of silence, on the one night at in the Kalahari Desert at Rimfasmark, where that tent picture was taken. The first night we were there, we had some very noisy neighbors living in. So there wasn't a lot of people. There was us in the canyon. We drive down like very treacherous angles. So yeah, we were there, and there was another couple camping there, and I think, yeah, there was two other tents down in the canyon, and then there's two chalets a little bit up the cliffs, a little bit up the road. And in one of those chalets, some people came and stayed that were very loud. They were playing music over their boom box. They were revving their car. They were driving around at night. They were getting incredibly drunk, screaming, fighting with each other. Not happy. But yeah, I'll actually get into that. Actually have to make a note there as well. So actually a thought that came to me at that time. So we're listening to these people, just they're not talking how you talk in nature. When you're out in nature and it's quiet around you, you speak a lot quieter as well. You don't have to speak so loudly to be heard. These people were speaking like you speak in a nightclub where the music is blaring and you're shouting at everyone around you. It's not a natural way of talking to your fellow man or people around you. It's an abomination of speech. And they were screaming at each other and playing the music even louder, creating the very problem that they're trying to solve by screaming at each other. But the loud music is of their creation, which actually gets back to the topic of the stream. And then I thought to myself two things. The one thing, and I told my fiance this, these types of people will go out in nature, they go camping, or they do these things that you hear people tell you, you need to do this to unwind, you need to do these things to relax. Go out in nature, go camp, or go stay in a nature reserve, go spend some time in nature, get away, go on holiday somewhere in the environment, in the wild. And they take that advice and they come do this. They come stay in nature and they scream and shout and play loud music and get drunk and just defeat the purpose. And then they go back home feeling miserable and they say, oh, that was all bullshit. They say we need to go into nature to feel relaxed. I feel more tense than ever. That's some terrible advice. But you're not doing the thing correctly. That's the point. And that's the point that I made to my fiance as well. I said, this is applicable to many other things that people do too, like eating healthy or converting to Christianity, things that they do because they think it'll make their lives better, but they're not doing it correctly. Christianity is a good example. People will call themselves a Christian and put it in their Twitter bio and make all these tweets about how Christian they are and how big on Christianity they are and Christ is king and all these types of tweets and posts, but they don't pray. They don't read their Bible. They don't practice Christianity. They just use it as a label because someone told them this will you might find some answers here or you might find fulfillment here, but then they don't do it correctly. They think the fulfillment is found in adopting the label, just as these people that thought finding relaxation is just in being in nature rather than experiencing nature and its quietness, not just moving your body into the natural space and still living like a urban barbarian, basically. The barbarians of modernity that bring their boom boxes and loudly ruin it for everyone else around them. Luckily, one of the game rangers went to address that the next day, and they weren't loud again. But also, another thought that I had is I thought and this is now speculation, I have no idea, I can only make an educated guess. I was thinking, are these people happy in their lifestyle? Coming here to nature, getting absolutely like shamefully drunk, playing loud music, revving their car, ruining it for everyone around them. I thought, at least are they happy? Even though they're ruining it for everyone else, taking happiness away from other people, are they at least finding happiness in this behavior of theirs? Just a little thought experiment of mine. I thought, I can't see anything from their behavior that immediately screams out to me that they're unhappy. I mean, there's a lot of speculation I can do, but no like concrete stuff. And then I got my answer 4 o'clock in the morning. So their boombox eventually ran out of electricity or out of power. And there where we were camping, there wasn't electricity. So they couldn't charge it. So the boombox ran out of power and then the music stopped. And then they kind of all went to bed horrifically drunk. They got to that stage where you just go sit down and you never stand up. You know, that drunkenness stage where you just go sit down and then your body just shuts down. They all just went quiet. And then 4 o'clock in the morning, you remember my question was, are these people happy? Even though they're ruining it for everyone else, are they at least happy? 4 o'clock that morning, I got my answer, because then they started screaming at each other, but not screaming in the sense as they were talking the night before. Now they are screaming in anger. They are swearing at each other, threatening each other, cursing each other, belittling each other. Oh, they were fighting now, like proper fighting. This wasn't like a little bit of a disagreement. They were at each other. I don't know what happened. Something happened. But the point is, then I got my answer. These people aren't happy. They're ruining it for everyone else. They're creating unhappiness. But at the same time, they are also unhappy. And misery needs company. I don't think the saying should go, misery loves company. I think the saying should be, misery needs company. And they were just ruining it. But at the same time, as I asked, are they at least happy? They gave me their answer through their just horrible fight at 4 o'clock in the morning when they were at each other's throats. They're not happy. And I know exactly why. It's not a mystery, because you're not proficient in the art of living. You're still children. I mean, these weren't old people. They were in their early 20s, we deduced. But you're not proficient in the art of living. The art of living means you are able to go into a natural space like that and be quiet, sit still, listen, look at the stars, maybe not even talk, just appreciate the silence out there. That's how you recharge. That's how, when you go back to the city, you feel rejuvenated. That's what people mean when they say, go out in nature and you will find relaxation there. Your soul will be walked home. You will feel better afterwards, but you have to do it correctly. Same applies, like I said, for things like Christianity, eating healthy. Eating healthy is not just saying you eat healthy. Eating healthy is actually eating healthy. Being a Christian doesn't just mean tweeting God is great or tweeting Christ is king because it triggers the libs. It's not just about putting Christian in your bio. It's about actually being a Christian and living a Christian life. That's where you will find meaning and salvation and peace of mind and a relationship with God. Not in simply LARPing as a Christian online. A lot of people don't get that. But yeah, that's the point, or the lesson observation that I made from our noisy neighbors. So even though they ruined that one night of sleep for us, and one night of tranquility, they did provide me with some insight, at least, that I can share with you now, and gives you some insight as well, so we can learn from these types of things. Never mind. So yeah, Let's check what's going on in the chat before I continue. I want to give you guys the attention that you deserve here, because you're giving me a lot of good comments and I think questions. Light Rain says people pollution. James Xanthius says perfect topic while I'm out for a 12-kilometer hike. I love it. Well, excellent, amazing stuff. Yeah, noise pollution, that's what it is. Yeah, Light Rain, when religion is a social club. Absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, people litter in the desert. I try to pick up as much litter as I can, even when I didn't even see it being dropped. I remember going on my second date with my girlfriend, now fiance. We were going on a hike because we both like nature, and I saw her also picking up litter, and that wasn't hers. It wasn't someone she knew that threw down. She just saw it and she picked it up, put it in her bag. And then I knew she was raised right and she has the right mentality. You can see a lot about a person in small things like that. Let's see. Patrick W says good mustache. Bye, donkey. Thank you very much. It's probably going to go soon. Grew it last week, but back to work now. Be Smart says, Ernst, this is how I feel about money-driven people. Yeah. Valerie Cooper says you can't take the city out of them. Unfortunately, that's a lot of people that are just, they drag modernity and urban life and all the evils and vices of urban life and modernity. They drag with them into nature, a place that's sacred. Because a lot of people earlier said in the chat, which is true, there in the silence you will find God. There in nature you will hear God, you will see God, you will experience God. Much better chance than in the Johannesburg CBD. For those that don't know, CBD is Central Business District. Yeah, and they drag their modernity into that place and drown out the voice of God, drown out the sights of God through their light pollution, drown out that tranquility that God blesses you with in nature. It's a sad thing, but it happens. Let's see. Sideliner says you can take city slickers into nature, but you can't take the city out of them. Yeah, it's not applicable to everyone that lives in a city. I live in a city now, grew up in a small town, spent my entire life, most of my life there, which is probably why I am able to appreciate the small things. But yeah, it's not applicable to everyone in the city, but it is a trend. Everyone says another wave of congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, James says you pronounce my surname perfectly. Thank you, Adams. Oh well, I'm glad. Dagbreker says, hi Adams, veels geluk met jou verloving. Al die beste van wense. Ek luister in die agtergrond. Baie goeie pot gooi. Dankie Dagbreker, ek bly jy geniet dit en ek bly jy skakel in. Geniet altyd jou kommentaar. Sideline opinion says, people who were not raised close to nature have no relationship with nature. I think you can grow and establish that relationship, but it takes a lot of more effort if you weren't raised. Luckily, I was raised close to nature and had parents that did everything within their power to expose me and my brother to as much of the outdoors as possible, get out of even the town as much as possible. Vulpe says, went with the family to a little village in Zeeland to be together, just playing some games and talking. Yeah, simple things. That's where you'll find happiness. That's where you'll find God. Not in the complicated, not in this hustle and bustle of urban life. You can find God in the city. He's here as well. It's just more difficult. It's in nature. If you are struggling to hear the voice of God, if you're struggling to see God active around you, in everything around you, trust me, go out into nature. You don't even have to do a long trip, just somewhere away from all the light and sound pollution of the city, away from the people pollution that someone said here, into the silence of nature. And then once you're there, like I said, you have to do it right. You can't go there and now play a loud boombox and take a massive screen with you and watch series there and whatever. You have to you can listen to a radio, you can listen to a podcast if you want something soft in the background. You don't have to constantly just sit in silence, But the majority of your experience, if you want to, for example, wake up in the morning and while you make some coffee there, you listen to a podcast or something like that, that's fine. A little bit of radio, that's fine. But you have to make time to sit in silence as well. If people are with you, talk to them there in nature, if you do it correctly, sitting around the fire with no sound pollution around you, sitting there in the silence, hearing the sounds of nature around you and hearing the silence of nature around you, there you have a lot better chance of hearing God as well. So that would be my advice, my personal humble advice to anyone that struggles to sometimes to hear what God has to say. All right. So that brings us to the conclusion of tonight. The conclusion of these thoughts that I've stringed together, the stream of consciousness, is that we can stop the metaphorical desertification of our reality in modern times through creating little oases. We need to become proficient in the art of living in order to preserve it. So let's elaborate a little bit on that. When it comes to stopping the desertification is what was beginning to happen there when those noisy neighbors brought their boombox and their loud noises and their city ways. They were turning the real desert into a metaphorical desert of emptiness and dragging modernity with them. City life is also, and modern life is also a place that has desertified. It has become empty and soulless and dead and dry. And the only way to bring back some beauty in it is to create little oases, not just of order, but of beauty as well within that desert. If there's one takeaway that you take from tonight's stream, it shouldn't be that you need to run away from the city or leave the city if you live there. I mean, I understand. I moved to the city for work. I know a lot of my listeners live in cities. That doesn't mean, it's not practical for most people to leave. But you can make an oasis within the desert. There's a lot of things that you can do. I've talked about this a lot on my channel. But going out, firstly, let's say, the key to creating an oasis within your desert, if you live in the city or somewhere where modernity is in your face constantly, is you need to become proficient in the art of living. And how do you become proficient in the art of living? You find the things that you find the things in your life that give you meaning, the things that provide you with richness, the things that provide you with pleasure, but not pleasure in the sense of the modern idea of just eating a bunch of greasy food and escapism through video games and whatever. Genuine pleasure in the sense of feeling content. A good example in my personal experience of what I would categorize as this type of pleasure is sitting just in, like I said, in nature at a crackling fire with good friends or family around me, having a nice chat in your outside, your nature voice, not your city voice. City voice is screaming at each other. Nature voice is talking even softer, because if you talk too loud, you hear your voice echoing from the cliffs. Those moments you need to chase. That's the art of living. There are many things that are encapsulated in the art of living. It's the difference. I can only explain it in contrasts. It's the difference between a microwave dinner and a dinner you made yourself, even if it's simple, even if it's not the best thing in the world. You made it yourself. That's part of the art of living. The art of living is seen in planting your own vegetables or herbs, even if it's just one little herb plant, and you take that herb leaf, put it on your food. That's already a small shred of the art of living, becoming proficient at that. Creating, building, writing, making music, pursuing your talents, using your talents to write, make music, do whatever you have a talent in, develop it, share it with the people around you, whether that be content creation, writing, painting, music, reciting poetry, anything. Pursue those talents, develop them, and share them with the people around you. That's the art of living. All these things if you have the opportunity to go on a hike or stay home and watch series, you go on that hike. Even if you get a little bit of sunburn, even if you step on a thorn, even if you get some mosquito bites, that sunburn and those mosquito bites and those thorns in your skin, that's part of the art of living. Sitting at home eating a microwave dinner and playing video games or spending your entire Saturday binge watching a series is not the art of living. The art of living is doing all those things that are sometimes difficult, sometimes uncomfortable, but so rewarding in the end. Final example, personal example where I feel the fulfillment of the art of living is once you've done a good job. Once you've gone, if you worked in the garden or you helped a neighbor or you carried something heavy for someone or you painted a house or you made something out of wood, and then at night you sit and your hands are maybe sore or calloused or you feel your body is tired, whatever you were doing, or you got some sunburn or you just feel drained. And then you sit there and you just, today was a good day. I was productive today. I did something good today. Or I created something today. If you sit there and you look at what you created, that feeling, that's the reward of the art of living. So that's where I want to end tonight's stream, is that the remedy for all of this is not we all need to go live in isolation in the desert or in nature. No, the solution is just to become proficient in the art of living. And that's the only way to stop the desertification of reality. Thank you for tuning in. Let's see some of the final comments before we say goodbye, because I see a lot of people are leaving comments. I don't want to miss them. All right. Yeah, making your own music, says Vulpes. Exactly, and often better than listening to the box. Yes. Let's see. Sideline Opinion says, no reception, no signal, just you and nature. Yes. Myra Page says, take care, everyone. Yeah, Be Smart says, I really like the concept, can also apply it to the emotional and the spiritual. Yeah, next to a river or dam, that's also very nice. Hearing a river or a stream or a waterfall is an immensely soothing sound. It's just something there in your mind. Something it's almost like an ancestral memory. Dagbreker says, I remember sitting on the deck chair watching the waves in Pringle Bay. There were just 6 houses still. Today it's a town. Yeah, but you cherish those memories and you recreate it where you can. See, Dagbreker's accidentally stepping on glowworms. Mr. B says, for me, working in the Karoo is like a holiday for me. Slippery Pickle says, don't do drugs, get addicted to life. Well, might be a cliche, but it's true. Yeah, this is going to be a difficult one. I got a surname correct earlier, but this one, Mayat Yuri says, Conscious Caracal, didn't have a chance to wish you well in your marriage/engagement. Best events and veel slapelose nachten. Oh, well, baie dankie. Nee wat, ek sien baie uit vir die toekoms. Light Rain says, had the opportunity to sit in a redwood cathedral forest with gigantic trees that are thousands of years old. It's stunning and humbling. Yes, simple things, guys. Finding that relaxation, getting those batteries of yours recharged. You can do it very simply. You don't have to go on a pilgrimage to Nepal or Tibet to do it. Just have to skakel off, shut down, shut out some of the noise around you and some of the excesses around you. Rather make yourself a simple dinner for you and your loved ones or yourself, depending on your situation. Rather make a simple dinner that you made yourself and with love and care than go get KFC. It's going to taste a lot better, trust me. Dagbreker says, thanks, Alan. It's great discussion. RT Pande says, wonderful, insightful stream as always. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Nick Miller says, sing along with it. I need to revisit that part of my heritage. Thank you, Aaron. So, absolutely nice. Yes says, great stream today, Adams. I'm thankful to know you, and I've learned all I have I have learned all I have from you. I pray that AfriForum is successful and you continue to do great work for all the good people in South Africa. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for tuning in. Andrej says, a time to stop the hurry, to disconnect from the net and connect with the creator. Absolutely. That's a great way to sum it up. Sideliner Opinion says, thank you, Adams, for keeping us grounded. And RT Panda says, Adams, your blood was pumping loud from the excitement of popping the question. Probably, maybe that was what was going on. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for dedicating a lot of your time to a long form discussion like this, where I just share a stream of consciousness. Your comments and your questions and thoughts help me loosen mine as well. To in Afrikaans, you'd say, om agter die kap van die byl te kom. Gooi 'n bietjie 'n klip in die bos. Thank you very much. And I'll see you again next week. And if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, you can subscribe. You can also leave a like. If you're watching and it's not live anymore, go leave a comment still. I read all of them, respond to as many as I can. And then, yeah, maybe we'll reach 10,000 subscribers this year. We'll see. Let's see if I earn it. I don't want to just get it for the sake of getting it. I want to earn it. There was one other thing. Oh, yeah. If you are curious about this topic of the art of living, just go check out some of my other streams as well. There's many that I talk about this very idea. Another one is called Build, Plant, Create. In that stream, I talk more specifically about an aspect of the art of living. Another stream, just go check out the discussion streams. That's their little label on the side. It doesn't have a guest, but many of my topics with my guests are also about the art of living. So yeah, thank you very much. I see Light Rain says just subscribe. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy future streams and conversations like this as well. Patrick W says, proud AfriForum contributor. Thank you. Thank you very much. You make what we do possible. All right. I've kept you all long enough. Go become proficient in the art of living. Make that your mission this week, just a little bit, becoming a little bit better in one aspect of life and to live it properly. All right. Cheers, guys. Have a good one. And God bless. I see you next week. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. But don't just stay within your comfort zone. Go try something new. Go experience nature. Go do something outside of escapism.